So welcome to session 3 of the AlphaPlus virtual showcases. We're happy to have everybody here with us today. My name's Tracy. I work at AlphaPlus, and I'll be the host for today's session. And today we're focusing on game-based learning and quizzes. We're going to see some examples of how people are using Kahoot and some other activities to kind of enliven their programs. If you keep checking the chat, you'll see that Alethea, also from AlphaPlus, is putting in links. So she's put in the links to the slides if you want to have the slides after the presentation, or if you would like to have the slides while we're presenting, you can find them there. And we'll keep putting this link to the feedback forum. As everybody who works in literacy and basic skills knows, it's important for us to get feedback. I know you've done a lot of these forms, but please help us out and fill out this one at the end of the session. If you're looking for any other information about virtual showcases, you'll see Alethea's put a link to our virtual showcase website and the upcoming sessions. And you'll see some links there to things that will be coming up in the sessions as our presenters tell us about their work. Okay, so thanks for that, Alethea. And she'll keep putting those links because, of course, as people come in, they can't see them if they weren't here when the links were put in. So she'll keep adding those links. Okay, so just to let you know, so I've introduced myself and you've seen Alethea at work there and you can see her thumbs up. The other person here, our organizer and our inspiration for this is Monica. So I think probably almost everybody here has worked with Monica at some point. So she's here today and she'll be doing our tech talk near the end of the session. And you'll also see that we have 2 interpreters here, American Sign Language interpreters. We have Gloria, who's signing right now. And we have Peggy, who is working with Gloria. Okay. If anything, if you're using the interpreters and anything happens, please, either in the chat or by raising your hand, let us know if there's a problem, if you can't see, or you can't, if something's not working properly, please let us know. Okay, so we'll just have a quick look at our agenda for today. So from now until 3:25, we'll be having our panel discussion. So we'll be hearing from 3 presenters who I'm going to introduce in a minute. And then we'll have a little quick session in breakout rooms to give people a chance to sort of talk about what they've heard and reflect on anything new that they might have learned. Then we'll have a little break. And then when we come back at 3:30, Monica will lead us in a tech Q&A where we'll look at some of the tech questions around using some of these programs. Before I introduce the panel, I'm going to read this land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands we are on today. While we meet today in a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Okay, so now we get to our presenters. So we have 3 people who have have come here today to share their excellent experience and learning with us. We have Summer Burton from Literacy Link South Central, Stephanie Hicks from Fleming College, and Wendy Teahen from the Literacy Group of Waterloo Region. And here's a little map to let us know where everybody is, dotted around Ontario. So we're going to start the panel. I didn't give much of an introduction because we're going to give people a chance to introduce themselves, which works a little bit better. So to start our discussion, our first question is to each presenter. Briefly tell us a little bit about you, your role, and your organization. So, and we're going to start with Summer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Summer Burton, and I'm a project manager and the director of communications for Literacy Link South Central. Our organization is a regional literacy network that supports adult literacy programs in Brant, Haldimand, Norfolk, Oxford, Elgin, and Middlesex counties. And we offer that support in a lot of different ways, from helping to plan and coordinate services, to making referrals, providing professional development training, educating the community about the importance of literacy, doing research and writing reports for the field, and creating curriculum, among other things. One of my focuses, both in my time with Literacy Link South Central and in my work before that, has been alternative and accelerated forms of education, which includes using play in many different forms as a means of learning. I'm also a lover of games, so if anyone wants to play King's Cribbage, Scrabble, or a round of euchre later, I hope you'll let me know.
Okay, thanks very much, Summer. And now I'm going to ask Stephanie to introduce herself and her program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Hicks. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and share with you today. I'm very excited. I am program coordinator, one of the program coordinators, and a faculty at academic upgrading at Fleming College. We just recently changed our name, so we're Skills on Demand Work in Academic Upgrading. I am also a registered member of the Ontario College of Teachers. I taught in post-secondary for 6 years before coming to academic upgrading, and I've been in academic upgrading for 4.5 years now. I teach all sciences, math, and computers, and I love curriculum development in all subject areas. In academic upgrading at Fleming College, we deliver both LBS and college prep or ACE courses. So we teach a wide variety of learners. We teach in face-to-face, virtual, and hybrid options. And we also have some synchronous classes and asynchronous classes as well. So we do a lot of different things. We also have 4 sites where we see learners. We have a site in Cobourg, one in Haliburton, one in Lindsay, and one in Peterborough.
Great, thanks so much, Stephanie. And now I'm going to ask Wendy to introduce herself and her program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Wendy Teahen, and I'm a group facilitator or group instructor at the Literacy Group of Waterloo Region. TLG provides one-on-one instruction and small group classes for all types of literacy, including reading, writing, math, and digital skills. If you have any questions after the presentation, please feel free to reach out.
Unmute. Thank you very much, Wendy. That's great. So you can see we have quite a few different perspectives on this topic. College, community-based, and Summers at the network. So it should be a very interesting panel this afternoon. Okay. So our first question, our second question, sorry, for our panelists was, briefly tell us how and why did you decide to explore using Kahoot or other game-based learning and quizzes in your network, program, and practice. And so for each question, we're going to go in the same order that we did the introductions. So I'm going to ask Summer to get us started.
I'd be happy to. We've been using both gaming psychology and play-based learning as part of our curriculum design for a lot of years now, because it makes such a big difference in terms of engagement. So many of our LBS learners are kinesthetic and they learn by doing. So it is a really great way to get them moving, acting, thinking, and participating in a new way. Starting with gaming psychology. If you look carefully at why people behave the way they do when they're playing games, you actually learn a lot about how they can be motivated outside of a gaming environment too. For example, we recognize that some people play games because they enjoy the social aspect, the shared experience. Other people really like beating the competition. Some people are motivated by the open playing field, games that offer you different ways of winning. And others are more driven by scoring points and leveling up. Once you know that, you can create situations where that social learner can work collaboratively with other people to achieve a common goal, or the competitive learner can challenge their skills against others. The learner who wants to figure things out on their own has choices in their learning path, and the learner that needs to measure their progress is recognized for successes along the way. That's really kind of the heart of all of it. It's a theory that's called gamification, and with it in mind, we've added a lot of different drives and motivations that are found in gaming within our curriculum. And sometimes we embed actual games themselves too. Can you forward the slide for me, Tracy? Perfect, thank you. Now, I know that some people will brush off gaming as just for fun, but it's important to recognize that there are some really valuable skills that people demonstrate and can practice while playing games, and that they are transferable to other environments, including education. The hard part for some people is figuring out what those skills are. So I challenge you to think about what happens when someone is playing almost any game, especially if they're really into it. They're really engaged. They're close to winning. The skills that they show include things like problem solving. Almost all games start with some kind of challenge or a problem to be solved. It could be as simple as spelling the word that is worth the most points, or as complex as staging a months-long campaign against an enemy. But either way, gamers are faced with a challenge and they need to figure out the best way to overcome it. Since everyone faces problems they need to solve outside of a gaming environment, building strong problem-solving muscles is really great practice. They also demonstrate collaboration skills, because whether a player is sitting right across the table from you, or you're accessing a remote server with 500 other players you've never met, most games involve some level of working with other people. Even in non-collaborative games, where the goal is to beat others, we can't win if they won't play and stay in the game even when they're losing. Obviously, working with other people is a real life skill we draw on in everything from group projects to working at a job to maintaining relationships with family and friends. Intense focus is another great skill that is demonstrated by a lot of gamers. We live in a world full of distractions, but you wouldn't know it looking at a gamer who is only a few moves away from winning. Their level of concentration and their ability to give 100% of their attention to the task at hand is actually pretty remarkable. And it's a skill that's valuable in a non-gaming environment too, particularly as we face an increasingly distracting world around us. Something that is wonderfully tied to LBS is continual skill development. If someone's understanding of a game and how to play it never changed, never improved, they would remain at exactly the same level for eternity, which would get very boring. As our skills develop, we seek out new challenges to keep gameplay interesting, which leads us to developing even more skills. That is lifelong learning in a nutshell, and we all know what a critical skill that is. And finally, gamers have the most wonderful ability to fail, to learn from failure, and to try again. Let's face it, anybody who knows gaming, you know you fail all the time. No one picks up a game and masters it on their first play, no matter what kind of game it is. If they did master it immediately, they probably wouldn't be inspired to go back and play it again. Games present us with challenges, and unlike in some real-life settings, we don't feel overwhelmed or too intimidated to try and overcome that challenge. Perhaps because, in part, if we fail, there are no lasting consequences. But being brave enough to try, even in the face of potential failure, is a skill that we can translate from the gaming world to the non-gaming one, especially if we help our learners get used to how it feels and recognize it as a learning opportunity instead of an endpoint.
Thanks so much, Summer. That's such an interesting way of tying gaming into how we learn in general. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to ask Stephanie to share with us how they're using gaming and these tools in their program.
Thank you, Tracy. So there's many different reasons why we've tried to include game-based learning in our program in academic upgrading. Firstly, it is a different and a fun way to learn and review concepts for our learners. And another important piece is that it teaches our learners how to learn, and many learners that come to us often struggle with this piece. So something that we try to help them as we work with them throughout our program. So the games teach them different study skills and different study strategies depending on the game or the application that we're using. And later on, I'll talk a little bit about some of the variety of games that we use, not just Kahoot, some of the other tools and applications that we use. When we use Kahoot with some of our science learners, we actually teach them how to use Kahoot themselves. And teach them how to create flashcards themselves. So it teaches them what to pull out of material and how to study themselves. It encourages working collaboratively, as Summer had mentioned. We have learners work in teams. We have them work as a whole group. And we also have them share their Kahoots or games that they've created with others as well. As I mentioned, we do show them how to use these digital tools. So they gain those digital skills, learning a new piece of technology or a new application. So not only do we use it, but we show them how to use it themselves, which is really important. And it also allows for short burst formative review for our learners. So a lot of the things that we do with them, they can do on their phone. And many of our learners have children. And so a lot of these really quick burst review sessions they can do while they're waiting for their child at a sporting event, or they're waiting in line, or something they can do quickly before bed. And so that really promotes more consistent review for them. So they'll do it, they're more apt to spend a few minutes and do that. And the last piece is that it does provide some immediate feedback. So if they are doing a Kahoot or another kind of game, they immediately get a score, which can help build up their confidence in their learning as well and with their skills.
That's great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. It's interesting. We were just having a conversation this morning at AlphaPlus about M-learning as a subset of e-learning. So M being for mobile rather than, and we were trying to think up examples. So that was great. You just gave us a great example to add to our discussion. Thank you very much. Okay, Wendy, can you share with us your ideas about using games?
Certainly. To add to what Summer and Stephanie have said, traditionally we think of games as being used as kind of a break or something that's social, and while those are good, they can be used in a variety of different ways. Games such as Two Truths and a Lie, or if you're in person, Find Somebody Who, allow people to kind of break the ice and get to know each other so they feel more comfortable in class. It can be used to present new information as well as review. Quizlet is particularly good for that. It could also be used for things that will be helpful from an class administrative point of view, such as getting feedback from students about how they feel about something, or generating discussion on something, a topic that's been discussed in class. Games require a lot of skills that can be applied to real life. A big part of game mechanics is knowing and following the rules. Sometimes these can even be debated, which is very useful as well. They often require creativity and collaboration as well as problem solving. And these are skills that are important for us to let students practice. They also allow students to take risks in a low stress setting. So part of a game is actually that you will fail, or you won't get it, or your team won't win. But we can use this friendly competition, this competitive drive to keep students engaged and focused. And overall, they're fun, and people do tend to learn better when they're engaged in what they're doing.
Thanks so much, Wendy. That's so interesting. And I think all three presenters have pointed out this idea of taking risks in sort of low stakes situations can really help learners take those risks when they're learning and transfer that skill into that other environment. It's very interesting. Thank you so much. So now we'll move to our third question and our final question for our panelists, where they're going to share examples with us and talk about what difference it makes for the participants. So now that we've sort of heard the why, we're going to get to see the how it all works. And again, we'll start with Summer. So
thanks so much, Tracy. We use so many different games in our curriculum, but one of the things that I have to point out is that having a game as part of learning doesn't just automatically create a teachable moment. Unless you consider and understand both the gaming psychology at play that we talked about earlier, and recognize and explicitly call out the amazing transferable skills that learners are demonstrating during a game. So I will give you some examples. In our curriculum series called A Game Changer for Soft Skills Development, see what we did there? We offer modules on 10 different soft skills, from flexibility and adaptability to problem solving and conflict resolution. At the end of our teamwork module, we suggest playing a cooperative video game called Overcooked. And I'm going to give you a peek at that right about now. So I'm going to ask Tracy if I can please have you minimize that PowerPoint, and I'll share my screen. Thanks so much. We won't get right to the end of this clip, just to give you a heads up ahead of time. I think you'll get the gist by about halfway through. All right. So that's overcooked. As you can see in the game, players control little animated chefs who have to prepare and serve meals in kitchens that are filled with these crazy obstacles and hazards. And they have to do it within a very strict time limit. Players have to work together to find the ingredients they need, prepare meals, serve them, and clean up, often while the kitchen is changing locations around them. Do you see the one with the two trucks going side by side? Half the kitchen was on the back of one truck and the other half was on the other. So they'd have to leap from truck to truck. Really, it's chaotic. It's often very funny. And the only way to win is to figure out how to work well together under pressure. It's fascinating to watch people play this game. You see their communication styles come out. You find out who feels like they need to do everything themselves rather than splitting up or sharing tasks. You notice who jumps in to help other players in moments of chaos, and especially see what happens the first time everything falls apart. Do the players talk about how things went and what they want to change for the next attempt? How do they interact during that post-game conversation? How do they think they need to approach the game differently to be more successful? And here's the big one. If they don't talk about changing their behavior at all, what does that mean? These are all debrief conversations. And it is a big part of what makes games a really great tool to use for learning. What's great about this kind of learning is that so much of what you take away isn't the game itself, it's what happened during the debrief. Analyzing how players felt during the game, what made them feel that way, digging into how they worked together or didn't work together and why. Having them identify the skills that their fellow players exhibited during the game, and then talking about how those skills are transferable to other environments. That is where the magic happens. So as you can see on the screen, the Game Changer curriculum I talked about suggests a different game, or sometimes more than one game, for each of the soft skills that we cover. And it includes all of the debrief questions facilitators would need to lead a conversation about the connection between in-game skills, behaviors, and motivations, and how they can translate to other areas of life.
That's amazing, Summer. Thanks so much for sharing that. It was very interesting, and I could feel myself getting quite stressed just watching the video, imagining how I would cope with those problems. Thanks so much, and that's a great resource that Summer shared, and you'll see Alethea's put a link to the Game Changer curriculum in the chat. So take a look at that when you get a chance. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over to Stephanie, and she's going to give us an example of a chemistry Kahoot.
Thank you. So I'm going to show in just a second, I'm going to log into Kahoot and show an example of a chemistry Kahoot that we use as a final test review for our students. So I'll just show you how that looks. And so what we would do, or what we do with that, if it's a synchronous class that we're running, we play the Kahoot together. And if we're in person, I always bring a prize bucket with candy or erasers or pens or just little fun things and let the students pick from there. And then if we're if we're online, we can't do that in the same way, but we celebrate the successes, of course. And then what we do is we assign it as a challenge. And so I'll show you how to do that as well when I log into Kahoot. And setting it as a challenge, the students can go back in and play that same Kahoot as many times as they like to review and use it as a review tool. So what we also do throughout the semester, we would have shown students how to use Kahoot show them how to create their own Kahoot, show them how to use the question bank as well, which I will show when I log into Kahoot, so that they know how to do that. And then we would show them how to share their Kahoot with other students, and also set it up if they wanted to set it as a challenge and share it with other students as well. When we're using the question bank with our students, we do make sure that we remind them to check. Anytime you're using something that's available to use, always check and verify that it's correct as well. Always a good thing to do. Tracy, could I please have the screen share? Thank you. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, perfect. Sorry, I just got a screen there. I don't do much screen sharing with Zoom, so I apologize. So I've logged into Kahoot here, and I've got the final chemistry exam review. So to show our learners, so I'm not going to go through and play this with you, but I'll just show you a couple of those pieces that I've mentioned. If you want to use the question bank when you're in the edit mode, and if you add a question, the question bank is here, and you can search for a question on any topic that you're creating a Kahoot on. So this one, for example, is a final exam review in chemistry, but you can search for Kahoot on anything at all. So you would just type in what you're looking for. So I'll just type in sodium chloride and you can see there's all kinds of results that come up. So you just type in whatever you need, and you can scroll through and decide if any of these questions you would like. And to add them into your Kahoot, you just click on the green add button, and it'll show right up in your Kahoot. So these ones are in this first menu. This is in all Kahoots, all public Kahoots when you're looking through. If you have created a Kahoot, this is a good way to import your own questions and move them around within your Kahoots. You can click on My Library, and you would see all of your questions in there as well. And so if you wanted to move your different question around, you could do it from there. I use this a lot when I'm creating reviews for final exams or test reviews and that sort of thing. And if I'm compiling questions, and instead of recreating them, I can move my own questions over, which is really nice. And so you can see as I've got lots of questions in here that I've used this particular piece. So that's a really nice tool for facilitators and instructors if you're creating Kahoots, and it's also a really nice tool for students if they're creating their own Kahoots. They can use different ones as well. So we like that piece. Oops. So this Kahoot, like I had said, is an exam review that we would go through and play together. And then when we're done, if you wanted to assign it, so after we'd gone through, and if you want to assign it as a challenge for students, you would click on the Assign button. So here is where it's set up as a challenge. You can pick the date whenever you want it to close. So I'll just pick a random date and time when you want it to close. And then you click on the green button at the bottom to create. You can keep the question timer on or off depending on your preference, whatever is best for your situation, and then click create. And then what happens is you're given a link that you can copy and send to your learners, and they can use it and play it as many times as they like to review. So the one thing to remember, if you are setting it up as a challenge, it does have, I think it's 2.5, 3 weeks. If you were keeping it going as an ongoing challenge, you'd have to go in and update your deadline. But other than that, it's really a neat tool. We use only the free version in academic upgrading. We've never purchased premium or anything. We use strictly the free software. So the link that I had sent, sorry, I'll go back over here. The link that is in the slides and is also posted in the chat is a link to a general Kahoot. If you wanted to have a look, I did set it up as a challenge. So if you wanted to have a look, and it's just to be an example of the different kinds of questions that you can create within Kahoot. So I did a couple chemistry ones, a couple biology ones. There's one with graphing and that sort of thing. And so it just kind of shows that you can use Kahoot for a wide variety of subjects. Thank you. Let's stop sharing here.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's really great to see the back end of Kahoot, and then also to remember all the things we learned in high school chemistry that maybe for some of us we're not remembering so well today. No, that was really interesting. So thanks for that. I think we love the idea that you have of having learners make their own Kahoots and their own games as well. It's really creative and a really interesting way to kind of reflect on what they've learned as well, like to see them make their own stuff. I hadn't sort of thought of that as a possibility, and it's quite interesting and innovative, I think. Okay, so now I'll share again and ask Wendy to tell us about her examples.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to be taking a look at how to actually use 2 different games in your classroom. So this is the Kahoot from the student perspective. I chose a Kahoot about math word problems. Often with math word problems, when students aren't having difficulty, it's not necessarily with the math, but with the language that's used with math. So this Kahoot allows the learners to kind of put them together and work on it together. One thing that's nice is that Kahoot has a lot of free examples, and you can create your own as well. You can add multimedia, audio, images, and videos to all of them. It does have a habit of trying to get you to do the paid version of things, but you can certainly go ahead and try it out for free. So the second game that I'm going to take a look at, or a kind of collaborative activity, is a whiteboard where the students can directly type and add things into the shared document using a variety of different tools. This allows them to see their own work and other students' work in real time. And it often encourages proofreading, as students will have to know that everybody else is going to see what they write. People naturally will work a little harder to make sure that their spelling and grammar is correct. So Tracy, if you don't mind, I'll bring up my screen here. So we'll try out the 2 games quickly. So from the learner's perspective, this is what they would see. I would post this up on the board. They can join the Kahoot either by using their cell phone to scan the QR code. This allows them to try out new technologies. If you are having a class in person, often the students will naturally help each other if one of them knows how to do it and somebody else is struggling. They can also go to Kahoot IT and enter in this code. Lovely. So please feel free to join using a cell phone. And to do that, you will go to Kahoot IT, not Kahoot.com, because that is the teacher or the host perspective. So we'll just get one or two people in here. Excellent. So at this time, because this is going to be using math, it's working with decimals and some higher math skills, I would encourage students to have a pencil and paper handy. And I might go through the first activity with them to see, just to review how to use those skills. So I'm going to begin now. Try your best. This is typically longer than I would have each question be. These are 90 seconds, and that's because they're not just going to be reviewing the problem. They are going to be actually having to do math, like carrying over and whatnot. But you can see here with the image, it shows you a clear representation of the problem. First, they would have to figure out, okay, what type of problem is it? We see the word total, so this is an addition problem. I would also encourage the students to make sure that the decimals are lined up so they know which column they need to carry over. And then with this one, I try to balance it so that everybody has enough time, but there's not too much extra time left over. So to do this, everybody needs to answer in order for it to go to the next question. Another important part of this is that on the student's screen themselves, they are just going to see the 4 colors. They are not going to see the questions or the answers for each. Excellent. So we can already see 11 people got it right. 3 people got a different answer. It's anonymous, so they'll know whether they got it right, but other people won't know. So when we do this, it gives us a little leaderboard, and we can see GW is in the lead. Another thing to think about here is as well is that the faster they answer correctly, the more points they get. So this really applies to the focus. It's hard, you don't need to focus on anything else when you need to get this done as quickly as possible. So let's try 1 or 2 more. It's kind of fun as you go through each question. They'll move up or down, typically in the podium. Here, I would often have a student read out the question, emphasizing that whether you're in person or online, you do need to be looking at the instructor's screen. Here you can see they're doing a reveal, which is kind of neat, adds a little bit of extra interest. And again, this is a little bit longer. Typically, I would give 30 seconds to 1 minute for an answer, but because this requires quite a bit of math, it's a little bit longer, and you do need everybody to answer in order for the question to be finished. And if there's a little bit of lag, I might have them count down. And here we could see more people were able to get the answer correct. And when I click next up here, you can see that the places have changed. So even if they didn't get one question, they might get the next one. So basically, I would go through 8 to 10 questions with that. And afterwards, they get a podium. So there's a gold, silver, and bronze. It shows up on their phone. And if they didn't do very well, it just doesn't show up on the screen, just the top players. So they're rewarded without having to worry about everybody knowing they got the answer wrong. So that was the first one. And now we'll take a quick look at some games that you can do with the Google Jamboard. I can see many people have already joined the shared document here. When people join, up at the top, everyone is anonymous, and then they get an animal name. So anonymous liger or anonymous wolf. This is a positive thing because people feel less self-conscious about posting things if they don't have to worry that their name is attached to him. Of course, you can always ask students individually who gave a response so they can follow up and explain it. So I'll just show you a couple here. This is one that I think would be nice and easy for us to try together. So you can see maybe we're practicing geography, and I've gone over some of the continents and countries within them. And here the students will be asked to go ahead, click, hold, and drag, and put the countries in the correct categories. You'll notice that occasionally, sometimes people might put work over other people's work. They can simply move it. Also, people, if they accidentally write over somebody's work, they can click the undo button up here. There's a variety of different tools that I would review with the students beforehand. Another example of an icebreaker is two truths and a lie. This is very common in big companies. Sometimes they'll do this during the orientation session. In this case, the students would put in their own answers, and then everyone would be able to guess. And at the end, they would tell them which one is correct. This one is the most interesting. Basically, you can take a screenshot of any activity online. So this really opens up the options. The only limit is your imagination. So for example, I took a screenshot of a crossword here, and you can go ahead and try it out. Basically, I would use, and you can see it can be moved around by anybody, but this teaches people digital skills as well. I would probably use the marker here, one of the thicker ones. And a really nice trick is to hold down the control key in order to make a straight line. It looks like it's getting moved around quite a bit, so you can also use a feature which would lock something into place. So, kind of learning as you go. You can also have them change the color so it shows up a little bit better. I had black there, but I'm going to change it to dark green in order to make it easier for everybody to see. And as well as putting it on the screen up front, you would want them to go ahead and cross it off the list. And yeah, again, it's in real time, so it's something that's very immersive and interactive. So those are just some quick games that you can try out. Some of them are shorter and some of them are longer. So you can apply it to whatever program you're working in. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Wendy. That's great. It was your Kahoot was really fun. I think everybody who participated probably enjoyed doing that. And anybody who's ever worked with me knows I'm slightly obsessed with Jamboard, so I'm always excited to see new ways of using it to add to my repertoire. Yeah, so we just have a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm just wondering if we should, there are a couple of simple questions. So the first question was, if people don't have a mobile device, can they use Kahoot? Any of the panelists could answer that. So I can see Stephanie nodding. And yes, do you want to
Yes.
say
Yeah, sure. I ran into this situation a few years ago in a chemistry seminar in the evening. I had a student who didn't have a mobile phone. And so I just went and got him a laptop, because we have laptops we allow our learners to use. And I just set him up in exactly the way that was mentioned in the chat. You can go online and then it just shows up. The screen just will be bigger on your computer, and you'll just have to click instead of touch. So yeah, it works the same way.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. And the other question that I can see is Susan's asking about how to lock an image into place in Jamboard. So maybe Wendy could tell us that.
Certainly. So technically, there's not a way to lock it, but you can take an image that a screenshot that you've made. It has to be an image file, and add it as the background. So in that way, it's not something that can actually move. It's something that's just there set in the background. I just had to look that up now.
That's great. No, that's a great workaround. Yes, Jamboard's great because it's such a simple tool, but sometimes it doesn't do everything we want it to do. So that's great. Thanks for that tip. I don't see any other questions. Alethea, I know you're monitoring the chat, so you could highlight them if there's anything else.
Sure. Yeah. I don't see any. I think you covered them, Tracy.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Alethea. So, in that case, I'll move back to, oops. Okay, just a sec. You're going to see the Jamboard again, just till I get to the slides. Okay, I'll go back to sharing the slides. And I think I said the last question was the final question. I don't know why I said that, because this is actually the question, the fourth question for the participants. So now that we've seen a little bit of why they're using games, and how it's working, our last question is to find out what people have learned about using game-based activities and quizzes, and what their advice would be for us who are newbies at this. So again, we'll start with Summer.
Thanks so much. What we have learned, and we've learned it over and over again throughout this process, is that there is a wildly universal appeal to play. That is what makes it such a powerful learning tool. I know that a lot of people may think that games will only appeal to a certain demographic. And I agree that people with a lot of experience playing games may find them very quickly motivating. But remember what we talked about earlier about gamification. It's more about the psychology of motivation than it is about simply turning things into a game. We've been lucky enough to have diverse LBS and employment programs from across the province test out our Game Changer and other training material and provide us feedback. So what I find personally hugely rewarding is hearing that a group of Low German speaking Mennonite women participated in this training and were just as engaged as 16-year-olds in an after-school program for at-risk youth. They experienced it a little differently, but it is amazing to see how universally translatable play is. In terms of tips, my biggest tip is to just give it a try. From a gaming psychology perspective, think about what encourages people to be engaged. The motivated, dedicated, risk-taking learners in a gaming environment. And then try to embed some of those motivators into a classroom. So a literacy practitioner could, for example, choose to integrate a system to recognize learning accomplishments, sort of the easiest starting spot. Consider how learners could track their progress through learning material and see proof that their skills are developing visually in some way. I think it's important to consider what we measure success against too. So people can gain confidence by doing something just a little better than they did last time, even if they're not successful. We need to reward progress in a way that people can recognize and celebrate success by learning from their mistakes and making small improvements rather than looking at and comparing themselves to other people in their lives or in their classroom. We can also build some choices into our teaching, so learners don't have to accomplish tasks in one rote way, but can choose the way that appeals to them the most. I mean, at the end of the day, does it really matter whether the concept that a teacher is trying to reinforce is demonstrated in a YouTube video or written about on a blog, performed as a skit, or demonstrated in a scene someone finds from an action film? As long as the learning is absorbed, probably not. And giving students the challenge of finding different ways to learn and demonstrate their knowledge gives them a sense of ownership over their learning while providing teachers an opportunity to see how deep their understanding is. When embedding actual games and play into a program, I urge everyone to consider the skills that people practice and demonstrate in games, and then research which games require those skills for successful gameplay. We did that with our Game Changer project. It doesn't have to be prohibitively expensive either. Not only are there lots and lots of card and board games that are really reasonably priced, but if buying a gaming system for your perfect choice of video game is out of reach, and for most of us it is, then consider online versions of the same games, which can be downloaded to a computer and played, or even streamed online for a much lower cost. At the end, just remember to debrief with learners following the gameplay so they understand the purpose of embedding the game into the curriculum and what skills they demonstrated when they played. I know that it's already been shared in the chat, but I'll say again, you are welcome to use the curriculum on the Literacy Links South Central website. Both the Game Changer set and our other gamified curriculum are completely free to use. I've posted a link to that portion on the screen, and I know it's gone by in chat as well. And also, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to address them during today's session, obviously, and after. And I've popped my email address on the screen, so please feel free to drop me an email at any time.
Thanks so much, Summer. That's a great overview of what you've learned by using games, and some really interesting points there that I'm kind of mulling over as you were talking. That's really helpful. And thanks again for sharing the curriculum and your address. And if people have questions for Summer, just you can pop them in the chat, and we'll ask them at the end of this panel. Okay, so now I'm going to move to Stephanie and hear about what they learned at Fleming about using games.
Thank you. So we've learned a few things. First is that most of our learners really love engaging in the games. We have had one cohort so far that didn't like it. So it really is important to check in with your learners regularly just to make sure that what you're doing works and that they're enjoying it, and also to be ready with something else. And that kind of leads into the list of things I'm going to talk about at the end of some of the other pieces that we have done as well. I did receive some really good student feedback in one of my chemistry seminars about, and the question was just, you know, what do you like about what do you like about seminar? What do you not like about seminar? And a student had said, I find seminar very helpful. I'm happy to attend, but my favorite part is the Kahoot, because I find it a very fun way to review and, like some friendly competition with each other. And so that was really good feedback for me. So we kept doing it because we did a Kahoot every week together. So they really do love it. The other thing is that to remember that sometimes technology doesn't work the way you want it to. Sometimes learners don't have devices, as I have shared earlier. I did run into that situation, and it was something I hadn't planned for that. And so the backup plan was to go and grab a laptop. And so just thinking about that and allowing time if learners do have difficulty using, if it is a new piece of technology for them. The other thing, thinking about being flexible, if you are in person and someone doesn't have a mobile app or there is no access to a computer for them, another way for them to still participate might be to have them write it on the whiteboard if you're in the classroom, or just thinking of different options so they can still participate. So I did just want to take a couple minutes and talk about some of the other pieces that we have used in upgrading. So mainly we do use Kahoots all the time, as I've talked a lot about today, but we also use flashcards. So our biology class, another faculty used flashcards with Chegg, and she showed her students how to create flashcards. And so they created sets, because biology has a lot of memorization of terms, and so very helpful to have those pieces. And so they created a set of flashcards together as a group, and she showed them how to use that application. Each learner created their own set of flashcards, and then they shared them amongst themselves and used those throughout the semester as well. We use Quizlet. Right now, Quizlet is on a list of resources. In each course that we have, we give our students an at-a-glance sheet, which just is an overview of the course and has a list of useful resources. And Quizlet is listed as a resource, but I just learned when I was talking with Monica last week that Quizlet has changed quite a bit since I've been on last. So I'm going to go in and have a look at some of the study sets and create some links and resources for students on specific study sets for specific math courses and specific units in chemistry and biology. Another really useful resource that I used a lot in chemistry was online Jeopardy. And the link is there in the chat, jeopardylabs.com. And it's a great tool. And you can go on and search for a Jeopardy game that is already created on any topic, from Disney movies to advanced math or calculus. It's all there. So you can go through and you can search, pick whichever one you'd like. You can use it there just by using the link, and you can play the game as a group, or send it to and have your learners play it. And you can also create your own there by using the template as well. So there's lots of options. Really great. I really enjoyed it, and the learners really enjoyed that one as well. Another thing that we have done in biology is have students create their own crossword. And so just another piece for studying those terms, practicing that stuff, creating that crossword, and then they can share their crosswords with each other, teaching them how to use that tool. We've also used Flipgrid and short video recordings as well in some of the chemistry questions that require a bit more explanation. Instead of having them write it out or type it out, we have them create a short little video on Flipgrid and send that in, or a video recording even on their phone, just a different way to show that understanding. And the last thing is Mentimeter. We've used that a little bit, not in any of our classes just yet, but I regularly run professional development sessions for our faculty and our staff, and we use that a lot in those sessions. So another also really great tool. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. That's great. What a fantastic list of resources and ideas. That's great. And thanks for sharing us your tips and tricks with us as well. That's really interesting. I have a question actually. You said that that one cohort didn't like it, was not that keen on it. Was there anything about that cohort, or was it just sort of a random?
They had said that they thought it seemed childish, and they didn't buy into it. So we just thought, okay, let's change up the plan here, and we'll just try something else out of our list of possibilities here. So
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I was just interested to hear what which kinds of learners might find it uncomfortable. And yeah, I think that's a common thing, right? I saw Summer nodding her head when you were saying that can be a reaction. But I think it's interesting when you think about the sort of gamification approach, that it can be used even if you're not playing a game. You can be thinking about those principles. Okay, and Summer's put in a comment in the. Did you want to say something, Summer? Can't hear
Sorry. Yeah, I had to find my unmute. I had the chat in front of it. So yeah, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I find that anytime that we are going to embed games into curriculum, we have a big conversation first with people about the why. And I think that's particularly important when it comes to an adult learner audience. They so need to get how the thing that you're about to do is relevant to them and their goals and their needs. And without that piece, I mean, when I said earlier, there are going to be some people that just buy into it instantly because they already play games. And it's like, oh, good, we're taking a break from learning to play a game. You've already got them, right? For others who feel like, I don't want to take a break from learning, I'm here to learn, we really need to provide them with that foundation, that understanding of those transferable skills and of how you learn differently when you are relaxed and having fun and collaborating and working together. So it's such a huge game changer. Oh, there I went again. For how we can help our learners buy into this concept.
That's great. Thanks, Summer. Yeah, I like that idea. Learning doesn't always have to be hard work, right? Sometimes it can be enjoyable and fun. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Wendy now. If you want to answer that question as well, Wendy, as you're sharing your tips and tricks, that would be great. Thanks.
Yes, I completely agree with the other two presenters. It's so important to have student buy-in. Most games, especially online games, are geared towards children. And in an adult classroom, it's extremely important to recognize students' experience, past experience, and the fact that they are adults. Certainly explaining why, the skills that they're going to learn ahead of time reinforces that this is made for them and that this is a valuable activity. Again, if you don't have the buy-in, then it's best to move on to something else. And every class is different. So it might not be, necessarily something that you've done. Specifically with Kahoots, I would run them through beforehand. If you can run them through, particularly with somebody who isn't very technologically savvy, it's very helpful because that helps you explain the process. If I'm in a classroom, I like to encourage students who have more experience to help others, or sometimes they just naturally do it themselves. Another advantage of running through things beforehand is the timing of each of the Kahoots. Depending on the student's level of knowledge with the subject, you might want to have it longer or you might want to have it shorter. Also, I've noticed that some of the Kahoots, a lot of them are paid these days. So they're always trying to encourage you to buy a subscription. I just realized today that the one I did is actually a paid one, but there are free ones you can use. You can create your own and not have to spend any money. With the Google Jamboard, I highly suggest demonstrating all the different tools so students know exactly what they can do. Give them, 1 or 2 minutes just to explore and actually try it out before you get them to really begin collaborating or sharing their ideas. And yeah, something I found extremely helpful is holding down Shift to create a straight line. The only requirement for Google Jamboard is a Gmail account. These are free. Most students have them. With students who are particularly unable or unwilling to get a Gmail account, I've even created created my own Gmail accounts. And yes, though that's what I would suggest for those 2 games. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Yes, I'm definitely going to carry that holding the shift and marking tool with me from now on. I've had some activities where we make a lot of squiggly lines, and I didn't know that. So that's great, a great tip amongst all the other interesting things that you had to say. So I just want to thank everybody for what they've shared so far. It's just so much creativity and innovation and interesting approaches, and I feel like very humane approaches, very learner-centered approaches to gamification in literacy classrooms. So thanks so much to all of you for that. You'll see on the next slide some links to some of these resources that have been mentioned and some other resources for creating games in classrooms. I think I'll just go back to Stephanie's slide as well around just to remind people of some of these things, the Quizlet and Chegg and the Jeopardy Labs. Some very interesting things. There's a couple of people I see in here who we did some stuff in Flipgrid this summer together. We had quite a bit of fun with it. I don't know if anybody's using it in their programs yet, but it certainly was a fun tool. Okay, so Summer's giving an endorsement to Jane McGonigal, the Jane McGonigal resource. Did you want to say something about it, Summer?
That specific resource I won't speak to, but I will speak to her as a game designer. She herself has worked in video game design for years and can provide some excellent examples of taking gaming psychology and moving it outside of a gaming environment. She has suffered from a traumatic head injury that resulted in her having, I've lost the word, a concussion, a long-term concussion. And she gamified her own recovery from that process and speaks about that. And as well has written a book called Super Better, all about taking gaming psychology and putting it into a health environment in whatever way you might want to get healthier in your life. She's seriously a fascinating person.
Okay. And so, sorry, Wendy, did you want to speak more to these resources?
Sure. So the first 3 are just resources that you can use on your own. WordWall is pretty self-explanatory. It can seem a bit childish, so I would be careful with that, but some people might really enjoy it. The other 2 are just kind of resources that I read about gaming in the classroom, some of the justifications, I guess, and why it's important and not just entertainment. Yeah, Reality is Broken is an excellent book. She really is good at applying how games can make the world a better place. I'm also going to put in the chat her TED Talk, which is, like all TED Talks, less than 20 minutes, speaking to her experiences with how it's helped her.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Wendy. Sorry, I don't, anyway. Okay, so yes, and here's our big thank you slide to thank everybody for everything they've shared with us today and all we've learned from you, the three of you so far. It's been fascinating, and I think we're all leaving with lots of ideas. So thank you again for that. Oops, sorry. Next, we'll have a little chance to break out and think about what we've learned and talk about it with each other. But just in case anybody has to go, we'd like to remind you, you'll see Alethea's put the link in the chat. We'd like to remind you of where the feedback form is, to let us know how today went for you, how we can do better, what you'd like to see in the future, those kinds of questions. So if you can take a minute to fill that out if you have to pip off. But next we're going to move into breakout rooms. And whoops, sorry. And in the breakout rooms, we're going to think about these questions around what are some of the other tips that you might have around using games with LBS learners, or questions that you would like to share with the larger group. Okay. So Monica, do you want me to make the breakout rooms, or are you making the breakout rooms, or sorry?
If you want to go ahead, absolutely, Tracy.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to make breakout rooms, and we'll do the same thing, Monica. Sorry, I should have checked with you before we started, but do the same thing. So if people are using the ASL interpretation, to stay in this room. So even if you get assigned to a breakout room, stay in the main room, and we'll have a conversation with interpreters in this room. Okay. So I will make, how many people are there? There's 28 people.
This is always the trickiest, Tracy, right? The math you have to do when you're doing the breakout
right.
rooms.
I need a Kahoot. No, fortunately Zoom's done the math for me. So I'm going to make 5 breakout rooms. And okay, so is everybody ready to head off into their breakout room? Anybody have any questions before we go? Okay, all right. So I'm going to open the rooms to give people an opportunity to chat with each other about what they've learned, come up with any questions that you might have for the panel or for us at AlphaPlus, and any tips that you would have for each other. Okay, here
and
they
Tracy,
go.
Before we jump in, how much time do you think? 10, 15 minutes? Just so that
sorry.
everybody can have a good conversation?
Yes, so
Yeah.
let's take, so, oh yeah, we're before the hour. So yeah, we could take 20 minutes. Give everybody a chance to talk. Okay, I'll send you a little warning when we're going to close the rooms. Okay.
Welcome back, Sue. How was your breakout room?
It was fabulous, but I saw that it said, return to the main room, and I clicked it. I didn't mean to click it. I was just going to wait until we got booted out, but I actually pressed the button and it was too late. I couldn't go back.
Oh, I hope you didn't interrupt one of the conversations you may have had. But hey, I thought there was good time. Tracy, fantastic. I hope everybody had a good chance to chat with each other.
It was fabulous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was good. Summer bailed on us, so Jim and I went and snuck into somebody else's room. So yeah, it was great. So did anybody have any questions, tips, fantastic things that they talked about that they want to share with the larger group?
Please share.
We did have one question. I could start while you guys are thinking about it. We had no, and I'm trying to remember who had suggested, was it Wendy, I think, about creating, or oh, sorry, it doesn't matter. Creating crosswords.
Yeah.
And we were
I
wondering
believe that was Stephanie.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Stephanie, you had in your list of resources, something that you do is have students or learners create crosswords, and we were wondering where you do that, like if
that's I'll have to get back to you on that one. That one I haven't done. That was my colleague who'd done that piece. I'll send her a message though, and then I can put it in the chat because she'll have that. She's online now as well, but I haven't done that piece myself.
Oh yeah. We didn't tell you, but Stephanie was kindly came in when somebody else wasn't able to be here today. So she had less notice than some other people. So yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Was there anything else that people were talking about that they wanted to share with the larger group, or a question they wanted to ask?
Success stories, maybe if you already used some of the games or activities.
I don't know if one of Summer's coworkers is here or not to know about the resources that they offer, if they have packages that they sell, or if you hit the right button, if everything's just available. I didn't know how that worked.
So Cheryl, I think if Summer stepped away, the curriculum she mentioned, it's all free on their website. It's all broken down into sections, and you can open, and it will have resources that are for learners and instructions for instructors. So you actually get a full curriculum that you can use. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
No problem. And good to see you, Cheryl. Haven't seen you in a while as well.
I know. I got to say hello to Tracy in the breakout room, but I was fangirling on the two of you.
I know, I couldn't believe it when I saw you. I was like, oh, it's Cheryl. Okay, so all right. Well, if nobody else has anything that they feel compelled to share right now, or any questions, I guess we could take a little break and then come back for Monica's Q&A, her tech Q&A. So if we break now, come back at 3:30, would that work, Monica?
I think it should be okay. It's going to be a bit more informal, a bit more demonstrations. I'm also going to bring in the Pear Deck, which is a tool that wasn't discussed during the session, but I want to share more about that as well, because I think you may enjoy it. So just kind of, filling in the gaps on some of the things or questions you may have about some of the tools, demonstrating them to you, but within half an hour. So it's going to be quick.
Okay.
And if you do, yeah, perfect. And if you do not plan to come back, because I know some of you may have to step away, we will be recording the session. Please do not forget about the survey. The survey always helps us improve our sessions. And then I'll put a timer on so that when we come back at around 3:30, you will have that on the screen, but it will allow you to kind of walk away, do whatever you need to do, and then sort of see how much time you have left. So, okay with everyone?
And Stephanie has done magic work and put the link to the crossword thing in the chat already. So that's great.
Perfect. So one of the things I should mention is that we actually saved the chat and try to pull all the links that were shared that may not have been in our slides. And we try to share that with you as a follow-up to the session. So even if we miss it now, it should be somewhere in follow-up or on the resource page for this session. Okay, it's almost time to come back and do a bit of a tech Q&A. Ooh, that was loud. Perfect. Thank you to some of you who were able to stay for the second part of our showcase. I know this is the tech Q&A, so not everybody stays for that, but I know you may have some questions or you may want to try a few different things. So we want to make sure that you have a chance to do that as well. Of course, this session is recorded and then it should be posted within a week or so. Just trying to give myself some time to process the recording and then the work around that. So we want to make sure that you have the best option available to you for the content we'll be sharing with you afterwards. If you're leaving a bit earlier, we will be posting the survey one more time. The survey will also come to you as part of the email follow-up. So if you don't have a chance to finish it today, you will still have a chance to do that afterwards. But we always welcome your feedback as we go through the session and any questions you may have. So as I go and then share some of the information with you, we really invite you to ask the questions or chime in with your own ideas and suggestions as well. And since we only have half an hour for that part, I want to make sure that we use it well. So I did not cover too much in terms of the tools and resources that we are discussing. During the session, we heard about Kahoot, we heard about Quizlet a bit, we heard about Mentimeter, and also there's a tool called Pear Deck, which I heard about. I actually had a chance to see it in action, and I wanted to share that with you as well for multiple different reasons, and I will share that with you shortly. Before I jump in, any questions or any comments before we start? Of course, you can unmute yourself if you have those questions or comments. As we go, please interrupt, stop me. This is a joined group and community. We want to learn from each other, not only from the presenters. So we always welcome that feedback as well. Now, we talked about Kahoot, and you had a chance to see a bit of a back end for Kahoot and also see how it worked in the session, with Wendy giving you actual chance to even practice and answer the questions on the screen. But what I wanted to do is to also take you a bit more behind the scenes and give you a bit of a quick rundown on what the tool is about, because most of the tools we're looking at have a very specific thing in common. And what it is that we will be going potentially to a website or a link that somebody shares with us or scanning that. And we also will get a code to be able to enter and participate in that kind of activity, which requires our learners to understand how it works as well. And if you have yourself participated in those types of activities, you know that at first it can be a bit of overwhelming, scary, and confusing. Somebody asking you, take out your phone, do this, scan the code, put the code in. It can be frustrating, but it is part of many of the activities we are looking at as well. And in Kahoot, when you go to their website and you launch any of the activities you're working with, you will be looking at that code and sharing that code with your learners as well. I know Stephanie shared Kahoot as a link as well. So that's another way to share Kahoot with your learners. So it doesn't have to be immediate, something that happens right now. It could be a link that somebody can go to and participate in over time, in the evening, the next morning, over a week, and then you can see the results. But most of the time, what we have seen when it comes to Kahoots is that immediate action or activity that we are doing together at the same time. So it's interesting to know that you can do both ways. So rather than going and running through all the benefits of it and how it works, I thought I will just jump into Kahoot with you and give you a bit of an overview if you haven't used the website before. And Stephanie and then everybody else, please feel free to chime in and help me as well. So now, as you will see, I clicked on the Kahoot link that was in the slides, and it's going to take me to a page where I'm not logged in. So for a while, the system actually remembers your password. So you don't have to log in all the time over and over again. But if it doesn't, hopefully you have it saved and it will let you into the session as well. Now, what you will see on my screen is a very big red line. And actually it tells me that my trial is no longer available. So when I started using Kahoot, they were trying to upsell me and give me the premium options. And then when that trial ended, I only have a free version that we actually suggest you try first as well, just because it still has a lot of tools, resources that you can use without having to pay for it. But if you do decide to pay, the minimum fee is $10 a month, and I think it's US dollars. So it's not very cheap if you're trying to use it only once or twice a month. That's why start with free if that's an option you want to explore. When I'm on the home page of Kahoot, I'm looking at sort of like a dashboard, you know, the tips, resources, some of the information about the Kahoots I have done before, so I can explore and navigate as I go. But what's nice about the tool itself is that right on top, I can create from scratch, or I can see my own Kahoots. And this is just kind of a shortcut for me to get me there. I can also go to a library. So if I click on library, it's going to take me to library of my own Kahoots or courses. So this is one of the things that was confusing for me. What are courses versus Kahoots? And what really it is, the courses is a grouping of your Kahoots that can go with the course you're teaching. So for example, like Stephanie may be teaching chemistry or biology, she can group them into courses. So when she works with the students, she actually can go to that specific course grouping and can have Kahoots related to that specific content as well. So it's really nice to kind of group those things together and organize them. You will see my Kahoot is not very big. I do not have too many of those. I sometimes use those with my presentations when I go to programs and work with them to engage them, to start talking about technology. So you will see one of the Kahoots there is my PD day with one of the programs I was working with. I'm just going to click on it. And it's going to open the Kahoot for me in the full format of how it was set up. So I have a cover image. I have 4 questions in there, images to go with the questions if I wanted to illustrate this Kahoot. And I can start the Kahoot right away. So if I click on that, it's going to take me to a page, new window, where it's basically going to ask me, how do you want to share this Kahoot? So imagine I'm in a class with my students in the class with me. I can basically go into a screen, share everything, show them the code or tell them the code on the screen, and they can participate using their phones or tablets the way we did it with Wendy today. When launching it, I can also choose classic mode or team mode so that groups can work in teams as well. But I'm just going to go with the classic mode and start it. So that's where I'm going to get the information on how I can share this Kahoot with you without actually giving you a full link. So on my end, I can see that somebody can go to kahoot.it, something that Wendy was highlighting. This is just a website. If you want, and if you use the Kahoot a lot, you can have it posted somewhere in your computer class or class you're using, or have it as a shortcut somewhere on your online resources page so that your learners get used to the idea that they actually can go to that page, enter the code, and participate in the actual session. I'm not going to go there that far just because you have seen Kahoot in action, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But I love the idea of the QR code that Wendy shared as well, because it was bigger for me. I was able to point my phone at it and very quickly join the session. Again, that's something we need to teach our learners. And that's one of the evolving things that happens when we start using some of those resources. So it's amazing to see. And I can see in the chat questions around how many players. Yes, with the free account, around 10 players. When you start paying for your services, then you get higher numbers as well. So it could be 20 or 30 or more, depending on the package you choose. I'm going to close this window and jump back to my presentation with the Kahoot in it. And you will see that the questions that I ask are quizzes, true and false, and so on. And that's something I built from scratch specifically for my course or session I was doing. But I can go to discover, and this goes back into actual theme Kahoots that you can find here. So there will be all kinds of different topics you can find and relate to, and content you can actually find. Some of that content will be premium. So you will see there are fees related to that. You can buy them for $3. And as a side note, I'm going to say, you can actually create Kahoots and sell them on the Kahoot website. So you can make extra money by sharing your own Kahoots in it. But there will be also some Kahoots that will be free for you. And you also have seen Stephanie showing you that when she went into the actual creation of Kahoots, I'm going to do it one more time, click create. And as soon as I go in, I will see stars next to each template you will see. So even though the templates are there, that star tells me those are premiums. So I can't really use them the way they're actually designed here as templates. But check this out. I'm going to go to the training energizer. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to tell me it's a premium feature. But I'm going to say, I want to continue to edit this. It will take me to creation tool, strip it of some of the content that was in the original template because it was a premium template, but it will still leave me with some guidance on how I can use this type of Kahoot with actual slides in it. So even though it took full template away, it still kept some of the information and the types of questions. Now, again, in here, I have a few stars, which tell me this kind of feature, like inserting videos into your Kahoot, is a premium feature. But I can just get rid of it and repurpose the rest of it. So it will allow me to still customize this template to what I want to use it for. If I didn't want to use any of the templates, I could have just said create from scratch and start all over from the beginning with any questions I want to do. And each of those questions will have a panel on the right side where I can set the limits the way Wendy was telling us that she can control the timing on it. You can even do points, you can add images and so on. Now, when Stephanie was sharing the Kahoot, Stephanie mentioned that you can add questions and there is a library or resource of questions. That's where you will see it. Hopefully, if this works properly, as soon as I click add question, that's where I can actually search the bank not only for the type of questions, but the topics. So I know, Stephanie, you used chemistry, but I'm just going to put math just as an example, and you will see that the system is now going to start showing me examples of questions created by other people that I can choose and add to my own collection and create Kahoots using that. So that makes things a bit easier. Whenever I talk to programs and they start talking about using tools like that, the biggest issue is time and understanding how it works and trying to come up with the questions. So knowing that you can actually find full Kahoots, like Wendy found with the Thanksgiving and month questions, find some kinds of questions that you may like. I think it's a fantastic way to be able to repurpose and find content quickly without having to do everything from scratch. And even if I choose the questions, I can add them just the way Stephanie added them and showed us how to do it. So if I go in, you will see that this question got added at the end. Let me just go back. It got added to the actual Kahoot. And if I want to change that question, I can still go in and change it. So for example, I don't have it here, but Wendy had the Thanksgiving. And one of the questions there was about temperature, but it was in Fahrenheit. And in Canada, we use Celsius. You can just go in and change the temperature there in the question, and you still repurpose the entire template that she had for your own class or group. So there's a lot of content there as well. So jumping back, I'm going to leave it here for you to show you that, yes, we can have all kinds of questions. Each of them can be customized. If you have the question with the star, delete it because you may not have access to it. It's a premium feature, but in the end, you can save it. You can preview it. Wendy was saying about preview it, make sure that everything works. And then if I save it, it's going to sit in my collection so I can access that as well. So because there are a few things that I have used, right now they're not removed, those star features, it's going to tell me you can't use it. But if I go back and delete them, I will be able to save them for future. So I'm just going to save it as draft in case I want to go back. And it now will sit for me in the section where I can go back and edit it, update it until it's ready to share with my learners. Any questions around what we covered so far? Or comments? Feel free to unmute yourself. Are we good with that? I know Kahoot is one of the tools we use a lot, so it's a bit easier to kind of see the big picture. Okay. So I will leave it here for you with Kahoot. I really encourage you to go and create an account, have fun with it, try it. And then remember, in that library, you can create Kahoots, you can create courses or topics for yourself. So it's a bit easier for you to find the content as well. Jumping back to the presentation, you have the slides as well, so you'll be able to repurpose that. The other tool we are mentioning or was mentioned in the session was Quizlet. It wasn't really demonstrated. But for this one, what's nice is that in Quizlet, when you create Quizlets, you can actually share links to them and anyone can go and use them. So hopefully this link is going to work for me as an example. And Quizlet has been evolving, developing over the years. When I started using it a while ago, it was usually just questions that you played with, but there's more and more content coming in, like Stephanie mentioned with the library of books and resources. But what's nice about any kind of activity you create is you can create your own collection of questions. So this is an example, login vocabulary. I only have a few terms that I put here as an example, but if you're working with your students on computer skills, vocabulary around computers, they're just learning what's save, what's download, what it means, you can create and use flashcards and different activities in Quizlet to help them practice. So in this case, this was just a link that they came to. They will not see the create option because they're not the developer. But as a teacher, I can send it to them and say, go and practice. Practice as much as you want. So the game is built in and they can basically tap on the actual question and tap again to see the answer. Tap on the question, tap on it and again to see the answer. So it's almost like a flashcard that they're working with and playing as well. And then they can navigate to the next question. So this is the answer. This is the actual answer for the third question and so on. So arrows allow me to move between the cards. Tapping on the flashcard allows me to see the question and see the answer as well. And I can even zoom in on the image to see it better. So it actually can encourage a lot of independent work for the learners if they need to or want to practice as well. And it could be different topics. I know, Stephanie, you work with chemistry, biology, so that's where you could put content like that. Other instructors can work around math, about independence. I have seen somebody using this for driving tests when they're working with learners as well. So there could be different purposes that you can use Quizlet for. But on top, you're going to see there's a learn option. So when I go to the learn option, I can continue and just give the system a bit of information. I can sign in, and now I'm actually learning without the flashcards, but I'm learning through the question and possible answers. So I'm going to say it's a username. It's going to tell me it's a wrong answer. I can try password and so on and continue to the next question. So again, I'm learning, but in a different way with the same content. So the same content, the picture, the question, and the answers, I used as flashcards, as learning activities with questions and answers. If I continue to the other options, under learn, I was also having a test option that I can choose. So now I can test my skills again with the same content. And then another one that's there is match. Make everything disappear and you can start a game. So this becomes almost like a game where now I can drag the answers to specific questions and answers. So username may go here, email. If I do it wrong, the system will tell me, no, that's wrong, but I can do it one more time. It tells me it's right. And the final one. So it is very good to encourage independence, practicing. And as instructors, you can create all those from scratch on your own. Or again, you can go to the library. And in the library, you can find other sets. So there are the ones that I created. You will see study sets as well that I created, folders where I can group my content as well for my learners, and expert solutions. In expert solutions, this is something I just saved. It is actually the new feature that Stephanie was mentioning, which is the books. And it's actually interesting. So I'm going to jump to the section right on top that's called expert solutions. And that's where I can see books. And if I open them, so specific topics, maybe a bit more advanced than our basic learners. But for each book, you will start seeing that if I click on the chapter, there will be exercises to go with it. And I believe they add more and more resources. So as we go and see different resources here, there may be a chance to take and find a book that you may be using in your program and have students find the sets for it and practice as well. Something new, something different, but it's there as well. So under create, I can go in and create. Come on, I'm going to click home just to go back. On the home page, you will see everything I did or tried. That's my content that I can access. And I did mention to you driving vocabulary. I sometimes show for my programs how they could use that because they look for those activities for the learners as well. But I can create from scratch and I can do class, study set, or folder. So I want to create a study set. And in the study set, the system is going to guide me through the questions, but also upsell me those services. So free versus paid. When you go for the Quizlet Plus, it's going to be $45 a year Canadian. So it's not very expensive to purchase actually paid version of it, but you can still continue and then sort of fight the system a bit with the upselling and go with the questions that you want to create from scratch. And when you create those questions, it's a very basic setup. You enter the term, you enter the definition, you add the image. You enter the term, definition, image. And then the system scrambles it into flashcards, learning activities, or games so the learners can use it. So it's not very complicated to build that from scratch as well. Any thoughts or questions on that? I know I'm pausing and I know I'm going quickly, but I'm trying to inspire you or to show you different things if you want to try them. Going to go back to home again, so you can see me navigating back and forth to the sections I have in use. And again, I can play with that as I want. Okay, so Janet, your question about pricing, it's a free version of what I'm using. There was a Quizlet Plus version. So when I click on my free trial, the system actually gives me the options for that and says, for you, you can actually get it as a Quizlet Plus for teachers for 44 Canadian per year. So it's around $3.74 per month. This, they help you with that. But then you get a lot of more examples, sets, and so on that you can repurpose from others as well. I love this tool for some basic resources you're working with. If you already have some lessons, activities you're working with, this is a fairly quick way to transition learners into using some of the online content because you can give them practice vocabulary and things like that. And the system helps you create games and activities around that. I'm going to move on to Mentimeter. And the Mentimeter is a tool that I have seen actually somebody present at a conference. What I loved about this tool is that basically it allows you to take a presentation that you're presenting during a conference, workshop, event, and include questions into it that will allow you to ask the audience the questions, and they will be part of the same presentation. So I don't have to launch Kahoot. I don't have to launch Quizlet as a separate website. It's all part of the same presentation. So there's a fee for paid versions, of course, around $12 per month. It's not cheap, but it is very interesting in how it works. The free version, that's what I have, is something that you can use one thing at a time. So what basically it means is that if I created presentations in the past, and I'm going to click on it to show you, it's going to tell me the previous presentations are archived because you're using a version that's free, and we only allow one presentation at a time. So if I create a new one, the previous one gets archived, and I really cannot almost repurpose it. So it's almost like, a temporary thing that you can use. But if you have amazing content for your learners and you want it to be a bit more interactive, that's one of the ways to actually engage them by basically creating an example. So here is one that I want to show you. And what will happen with Mentimeter is I could be presenting to you talking about a specific topic. And in my presentation, one of the slides could be this Mentimeter, where I can ask you to go to our website, put in a code, similar idea as in Kahoot, and then you're watching the entire presentation I would have, including those questions. They're just kind of interspersed between the slides that I'm presenting to you. I did not add those slides here, but that's the concept. So I could have introduction, introducing myself. I can talk about specific concept, and then I can ask you questions right here. So if any of you would actually have gone into that specific website and add a code, or if I copy a link and paste it on the website for you here, you should be able to jump in here and actually access this and answer the questions right on the screen. So what we are doing really and really paying attention to is moving into Kahoot, where we do lessons activities online. We send our learners there for specific purpose, to actual tools that are now embedding some of those questions and activities right into your presentations or the content you're already sharing, okay? So in Mentimeter, when you create that presentation, you basically can add any kind of slides, images, descriptions, text, and that will be your core of the presentation. But in between, you're adding those questions where learners can participate, or your participants can take part in as well. So now I can see that two of you are able to answer the questions. So I can see number 2 in the lower corner. And also on my light, I can see 2 that tells me you like the idea. And there will be another page that I'm going to go to. And let me see if I can just quickly jump to that as well. I just need to move my pages. Here we go. So technically, as I move through the slides, those slides should move for you as well. So you're watching those slides on your device. And if there are questions you can answer, you see them on the screen and you can answer those questions and include them. They will start appearing on my slides. So if it was a question about something to describe or to write, if any of you would go in and write something, if you want to try that, I know 2 of you were able to get into the Mentimeter, you will be able to do that. So right there, it's showing up on my screen. So imagine you are talking to your students, they are inputting content into the slides that you're presenting to them, and it's all within the same environment. So they're not jumping, they're not switching, they see what's happening as well. So there is one that somebody put in, that's fantastic. I'll go to the 3rd question just to show you. If you had questions, I could say, here's a slide for you to ask the questions. Post them in here as I'm going through my slides. And when I get to the end, I will see the questions here and I can answer them for you. So again, it's a nice way to engage the audience in what you're doing or your learners. And if they have any questions, I can just see them on the screen popping up and I can answer them. So we are bringing our learners into our own content that we are sharing with them. So that's Mentimeter. But what's discouraging is that whole idea of one at a time. And that's why I included also the Pear Deck for you. And Pear Deck is very different. In Pear Deck, you actually can add an extension to your Google Slides, to your PowerPoint presentation, or even to your Google Classroom, and enhance the slides by adding specific questions, okay? So this one, I absolutely love how it works. And there's an overview in the example that I'm showing you, but I'm going to jump in for a very, very brief introduction to show you. So when I go to the Pear Deck website, they're going to ask me to log in. Very, very quick option. Choose sign up for free. And what they will do, they will ask you to try to join a specific thing or go to the next step. If I say log in with Google, for me, it takes me in because I already have an account. But if you start going through this process, it may ask you to specify to them what school you're related to. This was my lesson. I had to put a postal code and the name of the school, which I don't belong to because we are an organization, and I couldn't get through that page. That's the page where they will try to give you premium features for a month for free. I couldn't get over it. I just couldn't jump. So I actually had to call them and say, I can't get through this. So they said, no, put your own postal code and the name of your organization. It doesn't have to be a school, and then you will be able to get in. But you will get premium features for free. And it's a beautiful, beautiful setup. Let me very quickly just show you what kind of content you can find. So content orchard, think of the orchard with all kinds of different trees growing there, different activities. I love how you can use many of those with your slides. So if I pick any of them, it's about kindness. It gives me a preview. Let's assume I like it. I'm going to say, I want to use this content. It's going to open Google Slides for me and ask me, do you want to make a copy? I'm going to say, yes, please. I want to make a copy of this. It's going to take a few minutes because it has to copy it. So first time I was clicking on it multiple times because nothing was happening, but that's because it's actually making a copy. So now this is now saved in my Google Drive and has all kinds of information and guidelines for you to start using it, but also has preset questions. So you will see it actually tells me that if you're using Flip, you can actually use it with your learners. It will give you information on how to use it. It gives me questions and so on. And then share your act of kindness with your class and community today. And it says you can go to Flipgrid because this one actually works with Flipgrid. And I know, Tracy, you mentioned using Flipgrid with your students. So that enhances that. Other sets will have actual questions built in. Or if I want, I can actually edit this one or create one from scratch. And the way I would need to do it, and this is one of the things you need to know, you will have to go to add-ons in your Google Slides, and you will have to add Pear Deck. It actually will tell you, do you want to add it? And take you through this process. For us at AlphaPlus, our add-ons were disabled. So I had to go to our manager and say, can I add this extension? He said, yes, enabled it. And now when I open Pear Deck, on the right side of my slides, I get full tools to use Pear Deck with any slides I want. I can create new questions, text questions, choices, numbers, and so on. And then I can launch it. So just to show you very briefly this one, before I launch it, I can also choose if I require student logins. That's the email accounts the system is going to ask for. Google accounts because it's working with Google Slides. The difference is if I ask for that, I can send this set to the learners and they can do it online today, tomorrow morning, whenever they want, because they will be tracked by their email address. And the system is going to show me all the answers they entered for each of the questions I included. Or if it's Flipgrid, a video that they created. If I don't choose that, the system will not ask them to sign in. It will be anonymous. They will be able to put the information in and they will be able to still answer the questions. I will see the resources and answers that they used, but it's going to be anonymous. What's beautiful about this is the ability to actually use your own slides, plan the session, and bring in the questions from Pear Deck to ask your students to participate in. It's almost like creating full new activities for your learners and sharing them either in the class right away. So if I start the lesson, I can actually do it, and then I can do it as student-paced. So this is the one where they can do it at any time, or I can do it as instructor-paced. And if I do that, it's launching it for me, and I can guide and navigate the students. Again, they have to follow a link or a code because this is in class. If it was sent to them as a link, they will just follow the link and participate in the student-paced. But it's a beautiful tool to explore. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions. But I really love this tool and I want you to try it out, please. Questions or comments? All right, Stephanie, please go ahead.
This is awesome.
Okay.
And sorry, it's super awesome. And I see you can add it on in PowerPoint as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So if you go to Pear Deck, you can actually choose the templates and then you can decide if it's going to be PowerPoint or Google Slides. There is a classroom component as well you can include, and there are other partners they have. So there's something from Canva and so on that you can bring in and use. There was Adobe piece if you're teaching Adobe. So there are a lot of different resources there, but it's beautiful because there are so many of them pre-made, but also they can inspire you to do other things. So there's about SMART goals, you know, if you're working with your students on independence, checking in about the mood at the beginning of the session. All that can happen directly as you're interacting with your students, and the system will track the content in the back end so you can go back and review what your students said. So there's a lot of great tools in there. It can be overwhelming with that add-on, especially if it's not enabled on your account. Then you have to talk to your department. But a lot of school boards I have seen using Pear Deck, that's how I learned about that tool. And for me, it was overwhelming at first with the code and the numbers. But now that we use Kahoot and other tools, it starts to be a bit more natural that I just have to go to a website, enter a code to be in that closed environment for that specific activity. So it makes a difference that way. Other questions?
Thank you.
No other questions? If you do, I will be around. There is a collection of resources in our slides that you will have access to. And of course, we want to just mention that Tracy is starting something October 25th. Tracy, do you want to talk about that very quickly?
Sure, yeah. We're starting next Tuesday, another session of ENET, or the Educator Network. We'll be meeting every Tuesday for 8 weeks. We'll meet synchronously. Some people here have done it. Jim has done it, and Janet's still here, have participated in it. So if you have questions, you can ask them how it went. Susan did the independent learning version as well. So, and our focus is on blended learning. How do we incorporate more blended learning approaches, techniques, methodologies into lesson planning and creating curriculum with learners. Yeah, so it'd be great if you could join us in the Zoom sessions, and we have activities in Moodle that people can do in between sessions. So if you have any questions or you want to join up, just get in touch with me there's my email address there, tracy@alphaplus.ca. And if you're interested in more information just on our website, look for the Educator Network under the services top menu piece on the website.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's really worth it. And we have all the different instructors coming back with so much knowledge. And, you know, Tracy mentions Flipgrid and other tools that we sometimes don't cover in other topics, but they're part of the ENET or some of the activities. So it's a great way to practice. And of course, we have a new session coming up on November 15th. We called it AlphaPlus, but it's not only about apps. It's also overall about how you could use mobile devices with your learners. And I know Stephanie, putting a spotlight on you because I know you and Lee are using some of the apps and encouraging your learners to use apps as well. So we'll be touching on that in the upcoming session. We also have a community program showing how they work on mobile devices with clients who are just coming in and they're just starting, or they got a device from a family member, they don't know how to use it. They will share with us how they go about that to encourage it. And something they shared with me just yesterday, they said that now 40% of their walk-in clients are clients who come for technology and become the literacy LBS learners after that. So again, that's one of the, access points that where they can grab their learners to join the program as well. So a lot of interesting resources there. And as always, we have the survey for you to fill out. So please do that now after the session whenever you can, and reach out if you have any questions. If you want me to run through one of the tools we quickly touched on today, I will be happy to take you through that one-on-one as well. Okay. And that's it for today. Let's take a chance to thank our amazing interpreters who are extremely patient with us, very supportive. Thank you, Gloria and Peggy. We really, really appreciate all your help and support. And thank you to all of you who stayed for the Q&A with us.